Warning, the following review contains sexual content, violence, basically a lot of dark shit due to the subject matter I'm reviewing today, so you have been warned. So this is my mindful transformed. Okay, but if I want to control this form, maybe I should find something that would normally make me angry and deal with it another way. But what should I choose? Got it! Yeah, kinda going a bit out of my comfort zone for this one, but variety is the slice of life after all. Violin Jack was a manga series created by Devilman creator Go Nagai and released in 1973 in Weekly Shonen Magazine. But unlike the other publications that said magazine at the time, which was mostly action and sports themed, this was a horror manga. But despite the unique genre, it only lasted a year and ended in 1974. In 1977, it was given a second publication run in Monthly Shonen Magazine, but also lasted a year and ended in 1978. 5 years later, it was given a third publication run in Weekly Manga Garaku and lasted 31 volumes before ending in 1990. But despite the weird production run, it seemed to be marketable in Soei Shinsa's eyes because in 1986 it got an OVA adaptation by the name of Violent Jack, Harem Bomber. And I guess that OVA did really well because the studio then decided to adapt 2 more arcs from the manga and make them into 2 sequel OVAs. The first sequel being Violent Jack Abel Town in 1988, and the second sequel being Violent Jack Hell's Wind in 1990. Nowadays, these 3 movies are regarded by many as one of the worst anime ever released. Hell, even the creator of Violent Jack allegedly hates these movies. But I want to see if it is as bad as people say it is. Oh, and one more thing. Since this movie contains a lot of violence, I'll be swapping out footage with grotesque scenes of violence in it and replacing it with watermelons getting crushed. Kid-friendly YouTube, am I right? Let's just begin. The story of Violent Jack takes place in the Kanto region of Japan. After a comet strikes the area, the region is severely damaged by earthquakes and volcanoes, leaving thousands dead and cities reduced to rubble. In the wake of this disaster, several groups are formed in an attempt to try and survive, and it quickly devolves into a battle of the strong versus the weak. Those who are weak/vulnerable are taken advantage of by those in charge. The women are either sex slaves, raped, or treated like shit, while the weaker men are either taken advantage of, killed, or become rapists. It's basically hell for them if you couldn't tell by now. But the weak aren't alone. They have a savior. Kinda. A man by the name of Violent Jack, who survived the destruction of Kanto but lost his memories, has been traveling through the Kanto region, killing those who try to take advantage of/harm the weak. At least in the second and third OVA. In the first OVA, he's just going around killing people for the hell of it. I guess you gotta start somewhere? But that's really it when it comes to the story. What I described is pretty much all that happened in all 3 films. It is that shallow. Yes, I know that these OVAs were adapted from arcs that came out in the 70s, so the standards for storytelling in manga form are different than compared to today, but it still does not negate how dated and or shallow this plot is, and that it leaves more questions than answers that will never be answered in anime form because Hell's Wind was the last OVA for the series. How did Jack lose his memories? The films don't tell us. What made the guys in Section A want to rape those in Section C? No idea. What made Jack decide he wants to protect the weak when in the first movie he didn't care about killing innocents? We don't know. Hell, even the continuity of these 3 OVAs is bad. For example, at the end of the first OVA, he flies off as a weird phoenix thing, leaving that nice girl behind to fend for herself. Yet in the second OVA, not only is the girl nowhere to be seen, making her existence kind of pointless, but Jack somehow got buried in the ruins of a mall the second OVA takes place in. How did he get buried again? Hell, in the first OVA, he is struck by lightning and survives it, and even his previously stabbed eye recovers thanks to the voltage. But in the second and third OVA, he feels pain after getting punched numerous times, and in the third OVA, he has to be bandaged up after an encounter with the Hell's Wind. What the hell happened to Jack between the first and second OVA that made him this weak? Seriously? Oh, let me guess. It's in the manga, isn't it? Same manga, I might add, that is not fully serialized even today. Whatever. Let's just move on. The next thing I guess I should address is the major reason a lot of people seem to hate this anime for: the dark subject matter. As I previously stated, the world of Violent Jack is not a pretty sight. If you're not in charge, you're either a slave, abused, or killed in this world, and if you are in charge, the people in charge can pretty much do any immoral thing they want for no reason because no one can stop them. Outside of Jack, but I digress. There is no moral gray area in the series. What you see in all 3 films is humanity at its worst. So what do I think of it? Well, personally, I don't really see an issue with it. Here's why. Violent Jack's genre for all 3 OVAs is meant to be horror. The stuff we see in the 3 OVAs is the kind of stuff you would see in a horror film with this kind of setting back in the 80s or even today. You're supposed to be horrified of the stuff seen in these movies. You're supposed to be horrified of the killing / ripping of the weaker characters. That is the point of horror, inflicting fear into the audience. Hell, I hated seeing the treatment of the characters weaker than the ones in charge, and yet I understand why it was done. Granted, I think they could have executed it a lot better since they pretty much do it for no reason, but my point still stands. Maybe it's also because I'm a bit of a cynic, but yeah, I didn't really have as much of an issue with the horror movie having dark shit in it. Besides, I personally think there are bigger problems with these movies than just the dark stuff. Like the characters. The characters in this movie are flat in the goddamn story. Their personalities are flat, they hardly get much development, the villains are hardly a threat and have no real purpose/goal. The only characters I somewhat liked outside of Jack, and even then he had a mostly flat personality, are the characters in Section C, and that was because they at least had a decent reason as to why they didn't want to work with the other sections. They didn't really have much else going for them, but it was something. As for the animation, I think it's very subpar. Yes, it certainly fits the tone of a dark and destroyed landscape, but I really don't like a lot of the character models. I thought the lighting was really shit at points, especially during action scenes, and speaking of which, I thought the action scenes were really stiff while watching the movies. They could have done a lot more with the animation in my humble opinion, but they didn't, so here we are. As for the audio, it's mediocre at best. The soundtrack isn't really all that memorable or great to listen to, the sound effects are pretty flat, and the voice work, especially in the English dub, is really bad. Much like a lot of anime dubbed in the 80s. The only positive I could find about the audio is that the dubbing could be seen as so bad it's funny at points.
You're just gonna stand there posing, or you're gonna do something.
But that's about it. And even then, it's still shit. And that's all I have to say about the audio, as well as these films. Overall, the Violence Jack OVAs are mediocre at best. With a flat story, flat characters, mediocre audio and animation, I would not recommend watching these movies unless you're a real glutton for punishment. But do I agree with this being listed as one of the worst anime ever? Not really. Violence Jack may be mediocre to me, it may have its dark shit that doesn't please everyone, but I've seen far worse. So that concludes this review. Thank you all for watching, and take care.
Impossible!
So that's the source of this mist.
You cannot hope to control the power of my lantern. No one has, and no one ever will.
That's where you're wrong. I've let this emotion consume me for far too long. My anger, my frustration, but no more. I control this emotion, not the other way around.
My power has kept you alive. You would have died if it wasn't for that form.
You did nothing. I controlled that form back then, not you.
You're a fool!
Anger has blinded you from the truth, but I will not let the same emotion blind me anymore.
You need me!
Now it's time to do what's right.